Evening, folks. Welcome to CNC with Javi. Today we're going to do a couple of interesting things, which will be loading. Hang on a second. I got to mute myself on this side here. There we go. We're going to do a couple of interesting things, which are downloading. If we have time, we'll do a little bit more text on text, like we did last week. But what I want to concentrate on today is a couple of transferring bitmaps. So let's see what we can do here. Bear with me, folks. Just setting up the wonderful Windows system that I love so much. And let me close this one. Yes. And we are ready to begin. So, let's... Evening, everyone. Good evening, Larry, Frankie, Landis, Steve, Matt, Dave, another Larry, and let's see if we can get going here with. Let's take our first image. Now, this particular image, let me give you a sample of what it's going to look like at the end, and take a moment at the beginning of the show to. Ooh, Saturday in Australia. That's a beautiful thing. Take a moment at the beginning of the show to a little plug for my friend Eloy, who's got a channel called, let me get this right, I believe it's Maker Patterns or something of that sort. Yep, makerpatterns.com. So if you have time, go by and check out. They've got a bunch of different scroll saw patterns and CNC patterns. And today I'm going to show you how to grab just about any image, whether you purchase one of their fine quality images from them or pull a bitmap off the internet or create one of your own. Thanks, Steve. Steve just posted the link there. This is one of their patterns. This one actually was created by Steve. It's a CNC pattern. And this is the end result. This is a wonderful depiction of Jesus and with the crown of thorns on the cross. And let's go ahead and show you how to make that one first, and then we'll move on to another one. Let's see here. So we're looking at creating a new file. I'm going to make this approximately, don't have my tape measure here, I don't know, 10 by 14. So 10 by 14, regular thickness. Thanks, Steve. It was spur of the moment, and I do have some. I am going to give you guys some advice on. Let me get this away from the logos. I am going to give you some advice on finishing before and after. Because here, let me give you a preview of our second one that we're going to do, which is this one here. It's you can't read it, and that's another tip that I'm going to give you on the settings for VCarve. This is an Action Comics Superman #1, just a simple bitmap pattern that was just thrown in and quickly cut. That one also is on the patterns. Now, here's a few tips. First and foremost, let's start with opening the pattern. So we shall import Now with this one, we're actually going to open it because it is a logo. It is a let's see here. Okay, nope, that's the one I did. Hang on a second. Let me go ahead and go back to this again and create new file. Let me do the import. Let me see where I placed it. See a bunch of Jesus and cross. It's actually I might have. Let me go ahead and download it again real quick for you guys. Bear with me for a second, and I know I'm not screen sharing. Hey Nick, how are you? Welcome. Yes, I will I will have the feed up for future viewing. What I'm trying to do is, but I can't say when. It could take a while because I'm well, I've got a lot on my plate as of late, and this is lowest priority at the moment. I'm sorry, can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I am working on editing the where is Steve's photo? There we go. Okay. Oh, that's why it was from Eloy. Here we go. And oh, I get sent so many different things in so many different ways. It's not on Messenger. It's on, pardon me for the delay here. To finish my other sentence, I am editing these shows, I'm trying to edit it in a way that I actually have panned back and forth with the image being printed. So they go up right away as they are, but the edited version will be weeks later. Okay, let's see here. Eloy, there we go. He sent me this and he sent me this. So now I take this, put it here. Okay. So I've got, all right, let's go back here and so you guys can see what I'm doing. Yep, I've stocked up on Diet Coke. I've got another, let's see here, if you guys can see. There's another three little things over there, and 3 more because I'm about to go to the up north again for the week, so I need my sustenance. Okay, I'm going to drag the SVG file that was created here. Let me see. Oh, first, let me just okay this and drag the file in. All right, so now I've got the file. So if I were to just do a simple VCarve, first of all, what we're going to do is hit F9 to center the picture, and then let's just do a quick, simple VCarve. For those of you that are extremely, just want to do something quick, well, I've already got it set up for 0.05 depth and a flat area clearance tool. I mean, a flat depth of it should be a little deeper, say 0.1, and flat area clearance tool. So let's go ahead and calculate. Now, if we were to just grab the image and carve it, there it is. I mean, the image is nice and carved. That's all it takes. I mean, it's just that simple. If you're starting out and all you want to do is carve something, you could cut your board, have a nice square board, and cut it there. Now, if you want to do something a little fancier, well, go back to here, and we'll take this outer section here, all this complete outer section, and what I'll do is I'll create an offset outwards, say 0.15 of an inch, and I'll offset it. Now I've offset it, and it not only offsets the outside, but any holes. Well, I don't need the other holes, so what I'll do is I will shift click to unselect the outside and hit delete, so I can delete any holes in the middle there. All right, so now I've got that section. But here's what would happen if we select all and do the VCarve again. Well, let's just do it this way. If we do the VCarve, and with the new outside, it's all going to be reversed, and here's what's going to happen. You see, that really looks bad. It's goofy, because what you're doing is it's the negative. And a simple way to do this, I've shown you all before, and I'll show you again. It's just a simple matter of all you have to do is do another line and just offset it to the outside and select the whole thing again. And once the whole thing is selected, and you recalculate, you've got yourself, voila, a nice image. And what we want to do with this image, but now this new image has an exterior border around it, a nice solid border, nothing too complicated. And what we want to do is we want to use that border, and see right now what it's doing. If we zoom in, it's actually V-carving in between here and here. So the actual center of the V will be in the middle here. So we got a couple choices. We could actually just choose this line and profile it, but I like to have a little bit of a bevel, and since I'm V-carving this between these two lines anyways, I might as well just do a third, about 0.07 in. I'll just make it 0.1 in inwards. And that one I will use as a profile. And my profile will be cut all the way through using a 1/4 inch bit, and there we go. So in a matter of seconds, you've basically created the following. That. It is a beautiful depiction there. Now you got to remember, a lot's going on here. There's a lot of detail in this particular image. So most of this stuff, I mean, let me show you. Let me go back and show you this thing. Here's the sample up close. Now it looks nice, and but it took a bit of work. It took a little bit of sanding, and there are still some spots that if you'll look at, let me put it next to the let me put so you can see both of them here. You'll see that the original looks a little bit nicer on the VCarve than the cut piece. I mean, because it does take a little bit of work. So let me give you a few tips. First and foremost, the way I did it, first, before anything else, wood quality matters. It's that simple. You use good materials. If you're going to use pine, or you're going to use, see, this just happened to be a scrap piece of cypress, and this particular piece is so dry, it's very, very porous, and that's bad for a few things. It's not very dense, so Number one, it has a lot of holes. It tends to chip a little bit more. This one did fairly well, but it doesn't sand really smooth. It feels like fuzzy everywhere, and I sanded it with a high grit at the end. And then the second thing that's bad about cheaper or scrap wood or pine or something soft is that you end up with it like almost like a spongy effect when you're painting it. So what I did on this particular project was I did the entire project, I spray painted it, and I sanded it off. I mean, I used 60 grit to sand it off. And now there are other ways to do this. I highly recommend you take the time, because I just slapped it together real fast. Take the time and spray lacquer. Well, here's the trick. Engrave the piece first. Use you'll see here I have a second. There we go. I have a pocket, I have a VCarve, and I have the profile. Well, what I would do is first and foremost, this VCarve, I would probably go, let's say you want to VCarve 0.1 depth. What I would do is go 0.12. Okay, now it's not gonna look, wait a second, I'm sorry, my mistake. If you're gonna go 0.1 depth, what you would do is you would start at 0. Whatever you like, 0.05, for instance. Okay, so now I'm starting at 0.05, and here's what I'm going to end up getting. Let me show you here. It's not going to look good. You see, it's going to look it's going to look like somebody went too far deep inside there. Well, guess what you do after that? After that, you take this particular, any one of these, the exterior one, and you create a pocket. So now you create a pocket over the whole thing, and let's see, what was the difference? We said we went, no, I'd forgotten what I set it at. You went 0.15. Okay, so you need to actually shave off 0.05 of an inch on top in order for it to get to look nice. Let me put these in the right order here. So you've got your VCarve. So here's what happens. Let's say you do your VCarve at a past the depth you're supposed to. You start at a deeper depth, and so that way you end up getting a very, poor looking image. And then you do your pocket, and the pocket will actually shave off the top. But in between these two, and here's the trick, you, at this point, spray paint the whole thing. So you've just spray painted all the interiors and the top. But guess what? You're about to shave off 0.05 of the top. Obviously, do it after the paint dries, or you're gonna have a mess on your hands. But spray paint here, and then wait for it to dry, and then let's see here, shave off the layer. I'm not sure if I explained myself pretty well, but and then obviously the final part is the profile cut. But that way you will now have a, let me see here, let's see if I can nope, that's not what I want. That's what I want. And then this, I wanted these two, I want black. So that way you'll end up with this particular image. Let me see here. Let me catch up a little on the chat. It's Friday. Yes. Audio, thumbs up. Beautiful cut. And I believe I am caught up. All right. So you've got the image. You've got the that one's taken care of. Like I said, I recommend you now. The first thing you should do is lacquer this. Lacquer after you've V-carved it. The reason being is whether it's porous wood or I mean, whether all wood is porous, just at different levels. So if you spray a little too heavy, it's going to get in there and it's going to bleed and it's just going to be a lot more work. Well, if you lacquer the whole thing, then all of a sudden you're going to have a coating and where it's going to close up all the pores, and then you'll just get the paint right on exactly where you need it. And it's not like you have a carve in it. You could just paint right on top of lacquer. I don't care what anybody says. These are the grooves on the inside. It's not going to be this isn't a paint job that you have to be a powder coat finish protection, etc., etc. So that's this one, and this wonderful image here. I'll show you what I did and what not to do. I'll show you how to turn a bitmap now into an image using this image. Now, this particular image, what I did was I painted the board first. So you'll see, I mean, this was barely any work. This was a lot of work sanding because like I said, if you would have done it the way I described, shaving off a pocket after it dries, it would have been a lot easier. The danger of shaving off a pocket is that when you have small little areas, if you don't have a very, very sharp bit and you go very, very slow, you might actually chip off some pieces of wood in certain areas. So there's no perfect scenario. Speaking of no perfect scenario, as you see here, and I didn't have time I just ran this an hour ago. I didn't have time to go to do a second pass, but it should have been maybe 5/100ths of an inch deeper, so you'll get all the images. And these little dots here, this is the flat depth tool, the 1/4-inch end mill was barely moving. You probably would have been better off here with, say, 1/8-inch end mill for all these small little areas. But all in all, it looks halfway decent. Like I said, should go down a little lower. There's lots of little spots that should have been removed, but the paint, again, sunk in deep enough in the wood that it just wasn't. I'm used to high precision equipment with that when I work on engineered plastics that have 2 layers of plastic, a layer of paint on the plastic or a layer of plastic of the black colored plastic, let's say on the white, is so thin that you shave off 1/1000th of an inch and it's consistent throughout. Working with wood is a bit of a challenge, because look at this here. It's some of the wheel down here has shown through, and over here it should have, but it didn't. And here in this section, the bit was just off enough where I mean, you could feel the difference, but the paint sunk in so deep that it's going to need another pass. So, again, let's go to the actual technique. And let's open up a new file here. And we shall import the Action Comics one. Give me a second and I'll go right back to our file here. I'm looking for the file first of all. Bear with me a couple minutes. Okay. There we are. All right, so let me switch over, and we've got the Action Comics. Again, we create a new file, and we import the Action Comics into it. This is just as simple as the other one is, and I do have a few tips on importing. Like for instance, the other file created by Steve Nealon of Jesus and the Cross, which is available on makerpatterns.com, was a vector image. This is a bitmap image. In either case, whether you import a vector image where you basically don't have to do anything to it, or a bitmap image where you can go as simple as just clicking this button, trace, set these. You have to play around with these sometimes. In this particular case, I've already done this, and it's a very simple. There's nothing to it. Choose the image, preview, and apply, and now you have your vectors. You have your vectors. There they are. You now have vectors. It was that simple. I mean, it's so simple. You practically missed it. I mean, I can go right now. I can get on the internet and I can search for. Hang on a second. Let me open up a browser page here and take a second. And I'll just open one up that says clip art. And we'll do any one of these free clip art, and we'll put images. Grab the first one we see. Look, there's a cow. How exciting. And so we grab the cow, save the cow, and if we were to create import the cow, enlarge the cow. Let me click OK to import it. Enlarge it to whatever shape you want. Do a bitmap trace on it. And in this particular case, you want well, I'll just choose black and white, and I won't have the nose there. And it's just that simple. Oop, there we go. Preview and apply. Now we've got our cow. Again, we go to layers. Depending on which version you have, this is 9 and up. You have the layers here. The other one, you have the layers right in your menu here. Depending on which one you have, just go to your layers, turn off the bitmap layer. Now you see your original layer. So if you wanted to simply VCarve this particular image, oh come on, will you? There we go. And calculate. Guess what? You just did a cow. And you can actually color it. Let me go back to the color menu here. And the toolpath color, I'll make it, I'll just make it black. All right, so there's your cow. How exciting. Again, do what I showed you as far as if you want to create an image around it or a profile around it to cut it into a custom shape, or if you just want to do something simple like or for that matter, if you've already cut the board and that's your piece, you're done. But let's go back to the Action Comics, because I wanted to share a couple things with you here. And okay, how did it know to dig out the areas, the feet, the spots, etc.? All right, so let's go and we'll do for instance the Action Comics. Hang on a second, let's just do this real quick. Create a new file, import this thing. And the question was, how, come on, click OK. How did it know to a certain section was black and a certain section was white? That depends on where you begin. It's like every other space is cut or not cut. So let me see if I can explain that a little better. So let's go ahead and do this again. Okay, so we have our thing here. Now you'll notice that this thing did a cut. Now it automatically traced all the lines. It did an auto trace. Now I'm going to ungroup them because I had set it to group it all as one image. I'm going to ungroup it. So now these vectors, for those of you that work with vectors, yeah, it does look like a pig if it wasn't for the spots. I'm going to ungroup it. So now it's ungrouped. So now I've got, you see this vector here. What the program is going to do, VCarve is a very, very simple program. It's going to carve out, it starts out with nothing carved. Soon as it hits a vector, everything inside that vector is going to be carved until it reaches another vector. Everything in this vector is not going to be carved. So you think of it like concentric vectors. This one in here, this area will all be carved, all this area here. And if I can group these together, this area, and this area, and this area will not be carved in this area. All right? So now there's another circle here. So then while this is carved, this is not carved, this is carved. While this is carved, this little ring inside here is not carved, this eye is, and then this is not. So basically, if I take this whole thing, and I'll show you now one more time, with it colorized, if you will. Let's do the VCarve, calculate. And so this is something that a lot of people have trouble seeing. When they work with images, you have to keep in mind it's you have to think in binary. It's on, off, on, off, on, off. So here's this toolpath. Okay, so let's see here. Boom. Hey, why didn't it take my color? There we go. All right. So if you see, here's the original image. Get rid of these toolpaths. Here's the original image. So you've got this first one here. Everything inside here, you'll see that it is clearly carved out until it reaches this one, and you know, and the nose. So imagine, if you will, this is the first line. The second line goes here, so that's not carved. This space, if you will, this vector is not carved. This one is. This one is. This one is. These spots are. This one is not carved. This one is. This one is not. So it basically, I mean, that's the way it goes. So let's say you wanted to, and this is what I did with the Jesus and the cross a little earlier. Let's say you made a mistake here and you wanted this different. Let's say you want the nose to be black, and that would really mess up. See, these are the kind of things you have to think about. I could actually take this away and this would be black, but guess what? So would this entire spot. So then you'd have two white nostrils, but you would have this big huge nose which would blend into this spot, and that wouldn't do very well. You could draw a line in between there, and then you'd have a thin line there separating the black nose and the black spot. If you, for instance, went back and did what I did with the prior image and offset it outwards, I have just, in essence, added one more. So I have inverted, if you follow me, every single thing. So this is what it was, and now when I go to VCarve and recalculate with everything, here's what it let's see. Let me reset preview all toolpaths. Hang on a second. Wood. Preview all toolpaths. Now, it's the inverse. If you remember last time, the feet, the feet and the nose was white, the spots were black, the rings around the eyes were black, these two were black spots, black ears. Now it's the complete reverse. Now, between the new line and the original line, say between this new line that you made and now this line, that's the new first carving. So then this area here is not carved. Now this area is carved and this is not. And so on and so forth. So now you know. And it gets a little difficult when you have certain things like, let's say you wanted the face white, but you wanted the rest of it black, but you wanted the body like this. You're going to have to figure out a way to separate this one more time. It's definitely better the first time. Yeah, it's definitely better this way. All right, go back to the, hang on a second. Oh, I forgot to recalculate again. There we go. It's much better that way. And on to our, let's see. Yeah, it's definitely an ugly cow, but it just happens to be the first image that I grabbed and picked up. Some people like cows, I suppose. So let's go on to the image of the second image. One of many images available on Eloy's website there. Let's see here. And it's not just Eloy. There's a few makers that are actually contributing and creating images. So you'll be seeing a lot more on there. So here's the Action Comics. And all we got to do with this, let's go ahead and center it. That would be F9. Well, you got to choose it first. And there we go. Sorry, folks. I have to hold a second key down on my Mac instead of just F9. There we go. And we will make a bitmap trace of it. Very simple. And now this is where I'll give you some tips on tracing. And if you want to do just one image, yeah, Leroy, if you're looking for Adobe Illustrator image tracing, I mean, I've done quite a lot of that in my youth. Matt Haas from Awesome Wood Things has a weekly show, Learn Adobe, on Mondays at 6 p.m. I believe. Yeah, and All Things YouTube after that, which is also which is one of my favorite shows. So definitely go in and ask questions. He takes requests as well from time to time, and he'll be happy to help you with that. But I've found that this for CNC, this is a very useful and adaptive way to, you'll see here. Now, what I did was I will simply on this one take the drawing, create a square. Just what I did on mine was just a simple square. I went about here to about here, corner to corner, and there's my square. And then after that, I make sure it makes two squares. After that, I chose the square and I offset it. I don't remember what I offset. I think it was 0.3 outwards. So if you were to, at this point, select everything and do a simple VCarve, and this is the part I'm going to caution you, don't get into the habit, as simple and fun as this is the first time around, do not get into the Hobbit. Oh boy, Lord of the Rings here. Need more Diet Coke. Yeah, don't get into a Hobbit. But don't get into the habit of just accepting the auto trace and the VCarve willy-nilly. Or you're going to, well, if you're going to make a business out of this, you're going out of business real fast. And the reason why I'm saying this is straight from a bitmap. If you just take it and vectorize it and hit it to VCarve without working on it, for one time, that's fine. If somebody asks you to do it as a favor, then definitely don't spend any more time on it, and that works out great. But you're looking at 2 to 3 hours on the machine for something like this. Whereas if you spend 2 to 3 hours, that could tweak your time on the machine down to 30 minutes, maybe even 20. You really gotta pay attention to every single little thing, because most of these images, and I'm lumping every image I've ever seen on the internet, a vector image, first of all, they can't create a toolpath for you. So there's no sites out there creating toolpaths. There may be, custom toolpath services, but it's not worth their time. They have to know what machine you have, what bits you have, what wood you have, what depth. That's all you. So that's the part that you have to take care of on Aspire, and I'll be happy to help you with it. But the vector itself, when you're importing it from one of these places, you have no idea. Sometimes they're not familiar. Now, Steve is very familiar with how to tweak it for CNC, but you have to spend the time, if you want to save time on the CNC, to remove as many nodes as possible. have as many smooth curves, or I mean as many, basically every node is time on the machine. Just think of it that way. Let me calculate this. So when you have something that you just import, and for instance, right here, I'll show you this on the bottom line of this thing. Here, this is a perfect example. You see this here? You see this this line here? This is the toolpath, okay, of this line. Now the image is just this, okay? It's a relatively smooth line. It's a little rough, but it's relatively smooth. Guess what it's going to do? It's going to go, here's the line. It's going to go with the VCarve bit and go and dig in, and then it's going to go up a little bit here, and then up a little bit here, and down a little bit here, and then look at all these. Every time it does one of these turns, rather than doing a nice, smooth, straight line and varying your height, that is time on the machine. That is this, every single one of these little times it goes off. Now, if you look at it from a height angle, let me see if I can, while it is, it's a little tough to see, but while these things are going out here, let's take a look at what that was. That's all that is these little bumps here. These little bumps. You see, it's coming up to here. It's coming up to. I mean, this is an image that, if you take it, any image is like this. If you take it straight from a bit from wherever it is, I don't care how smooth the image is to begin with. Well, the smoother the better. But if you put it on the machine without tweaking it, if you're making multiple copies of these, you're going to be spending a lot of time on this. Right now, this one is, here, let's see here. Preview all toolpaths. 3D view. Let me reset this here. Okay, so we have wood. And this is what it should look like. Obviously, on the top here, I didn't make it deep enough for mine. But let's see here. Yeah, you see, notice the. Now let me share a few of the mistakes, or rather, this is what happens when you rush, just so you guys can learn. Now you have this piece here. Yeah. All right, you have this piece here. Up on top, Action Comics, that whole area. Let me show you the other piece. That whole area should be like in between the letters. There should be a lot of clear space. Like I mentioned before, all of this is because the bit didn't go deep enough, and the bit didn't penetrate the paint. So the problem is, if you don't have the right technique down with your finishing, if you don't take the time, then that happens, and then you're either spending time whittling it away or throwing it away and creating a new one, or running it deeper than it should, and then it doesn't look nice anymore. It's changing the whole look, because you should only shave off 1/10 of an inch at the most when you're doing these things. You could do a nice fancy 3D image. It depends on the image. If it's you could actually do a raised one where the whole entire thing is raised. There's only one problem. If you're doing a raised one, then you better be using a very, very, very small bit, because to get into the corners, see, now think about the difference between the VCarve bit and a flat bit. A flat bit would make beautiful work of this and make it all, it'll all be raised. the bad part about the flat bit is that you can't get into all these little details. If it was a simple pattern, piece of cake. The VCarve, the nice thing about it is it could create all the little details. The problem with the VCarve is when you have a very, very deep cut, unless you're using like a 45 V-bit or possibly a 60, a 90-degree V-bit is you're leaving angles that make it look extremely, well, ugly. And so, hey, Keith, how are you? And have a good day, Jim. You're probably long gone by now. So there's a few things to think about. When you get into the 3D patterns, or rather, not the 3D patterns, but rather the bitmapping the patterns, and you see something like, let's say this leg that we saw a lot of discrepancy in. Well, take a look at exactly the nodes. You could hit N, select the pattern, and hit N, and it'll go straight to the nodes. Okay, let's ungroup this. Okay, I said yes. Goodness gracious. All right. I mean, all of this, it's a simple matter, but you have to do it. You have to go in and basically curve fit the things so they're nice and smooth. And this is something that takes a bit of tweaking. There it is. See, that's nice. That's nice and smooth. But look at it. It doesn't look anything like the original anymore. Now it's one big blob. There's not a straight line here. So, I mean, you can imagine it doesn't look like, hang on. It doesn't look like this anymore. You know, which is, so you have to, sometimes you have to get in there manually and work with the nodes. There's a lot of these that can be removed. But, yeah, the machine's not a human being. So, oh, sorry about that. I wasn't screen sharing. So, to put it briefly, what I was talking about was, let's say you go and you got to take a look at the nodes. There's a lot of nodes in this one, tons of them. The legs of Superman. Now, all of a sudden, you decide you want to go and smooth it out. So you put curve fit, and you get the wrong settings on it, and then, well, you got that blob. Okay, that's, you know, I guess it looks sort of okay, but that's, well, not good. It doesn't look anything like this, which is the original. But clearly, this has far too many nodes. That's because the machine originally, well, for one thing, when you set it up to do the auto trace, that's the other thing you can tweak, is how many pixels so it's a combination between the quality of the image to begin with. It should be smooth. The smoother the better. The settings on your trace bitmap, and then when you go in there, the smoothing the curves. When you take those three into account, you'll spend a lot less time on the machine. Let's see. I believe I covered that part. So like I said, you know, you should take the time to check out the nodes, N for node, and it'll automatically take you to the node mode and node mode. And this is unacceptable. The machine's going to be here for hours. Not only that, when it actually carves, let me put the tool paths on. Let's see, that was the cape. Let me go back to, oh, here we go. So the cape itself, take a look here at what it's doing. It's going up. It's going higher, but it's going up. It's going, it's stopping here. It's moving here. It's coming here. It's coming back. It's coming here. I mean, this is every single one of these change of directions is time on your machine. Every single one of these changes of direction. So always keep an eye out and try to make it as smooth as possible. Circles, they're beautiful. Images, not so much. Yeah. And that is the machine time. Well, here's another one. The machine time on this one in particular, for instance, the Dave Gatton was asking, the machine time on this Action Comics was, according to this, it was 31 minutes. Not true. The actual machine time, let me see if I can get it to the right scale here. Maybe 7. That's about right. It was 1 hour and 45 minutes on the machine. That's actually how long it took at the settings that I had. And I didn't have bad settings. I had, here I had feed rate of 100 inches per minute and 30 inches plunge rate. And I actually saw that after I was going, boy, this is taking an awful long time. And I saw this and I go, you know what? I can go double that. So on the machine, as Dave taught us and all his friends, you can on the fly on your Mach 3 or WinCNC or whatever other program you have, most of them, you can on the fly adjust. And I put it at 200% to see if it would finish faster. It still took a while. And the flat area clearance tool, I have it at 200, so it's flying through it. But unfortunately, it's still slow. Yeah, your Shapeoko cut that out in 6 minutes. Yeah. I'll believe that, and you sell me a bridge. But in short, that's... Let's see, close that, take that off. There's our little image. And so, like I said, be careful with the way you finish. There's a lot of different techniques of finishing. My recommended technique is, first and foremost, the way I like to do it is I give it first a surface planing with the CNC, because no board is ever perfectly straight. Some of them are a little warped. So if you spray paint it and then you go over it and it's not perfectly parallel and you're working with tiny increments just to shave off the paint, then basically you've got gaps like this one here. But if you take the time and surface the board, then spray paint it, and then do it, then you'll get a much better result. Now, this particular, there's numerous things that went wrong with this particular one. Number one is the bit's a little dull, the flat bit. So it didn't, obviously you could see it missed cutting out this part right here. There's a little hole in the middle, and that is actually a plunge bit. It didn't plunge deep enough. It didn't have room to rotate. I would have used a smaller bit. Second thing, your hold down methods. Be very, very pay attention to what methods you use to hold down. I always swear by the clamping method, but in this particular style, this particular piece, no good. We're talking about 3/4 of an inch. It's a very, very, well, it's not that flexible, but it's an older scrap piece, and it's a little bowed there. Clamping it down, all it did was bow it a little bit. As soon as you started shaving off pieces of it, it unbowed a little bit, or bowed more, depending on which way it was going. Well, guess what? That affects the cut. There are so many things that affect the cut, and you'll learn these things little by little. So that's that. And if I were to do this for a customer, it would be with a nice piece of oak or maple or ash. it could be done with a better piece of cypress. This is cypress. But I mean, look at this. This is it was just out in my backyard laying around. Okay, so we've got ourselves our do you have any questions on converting bitmap images to vector, or tweaking images? Because I think that's pretty much it for today otherwise. And I'm catching up with the and hello Juan, I did see you there. Hey Ron, how's it going? Yeah, Inkscape. Like I said, there's many programs. Inkscape, Illustrator. I mean, you can even use AutoCAD. There's many programs. Some that are specific, and all they do is auto trace. Whichever one works best for you, whichever one you're most comfortable with, by all means, use it. But in the end, when you have as few nodes as possible, as many smooth curves as possible, and check out the pattern when check out the toolpath, because those delays will cost you quite a bit. I mean, this thing, I've done work much more complicated than this in 20 minutes, and this one was just that little VCarve was there forever, it seemed, because you don't put the time into it. Now, like I said, and I'll repeat this, if you, I'll show the cross again, if this is a one-shot deal, if this is just for somebody and you're not doing 100 of these or anything, then by all means, move on, because it's not worth the effort, not worth the time you put into it. Hour and a half in the machine and you're up to the next one. But if it's something that you're going to be cranking out a lot of these or batching them out, every spare minute is now multiplied. So take advantage of that. And that's my tip of the day. Let's see. So yes, Patrick, it's been mentioned 3 times. You're late. But thank you for reminding us once again of CNC patterns on makerpatterns.com. Eloy's brainchild, and there's a few patterns there that you might want to take a look at them. Again, like with everything else, I mean, there's Eloy has been fantastic for all you scroll sawyers out there, Eloy does a phenomenal job in creating scroll saw patterns. You can use any one of them, like this Action Comics one here that he created for the scroll saw, and you could use it for the CNC. Take any scroll saw pattern, take any bitmap pattern, and you can convert it. Some of the lines you may have to tweak, you may have to, because but if you VCarve it, no line is too thin. And there are CNC patterns on there as well. And there are a couple Christmas things on the site, Dave. There will be more soon. By the way, for those of you, well, all of you know Dave. Dave Gatton, his CNC with Dave will be tomorrow night at 8. He's having a Christmas challenge throughout the month. It starts Black Friday. That would be today. So starting today until Christmas, it's not just for CNCers. I will emphasize that. Scroll saw, woodwork, just if you're working with wood, and I'm not sure if it's just wood too, because I wonder if plasma cutters or welders can get in on this. Well, anyway, it's a Christmas challenge. It's a woodworking or maker related Christmas challenge. Create an ornament. Create 100 ornaments, as many as you like, and throw them in there. There will be prizes. There will be I assume there will be prizes, and there will be a show and tell episode at the end where all your wonderful works will be. And I would definitely tune into that episode, because if you need any ideas for the following year, that is a great place to see it. I'd love to see all the stuff from last year. It's a CNC Christmas challenge, but not necessarily CNC. Is it CNC only, Dave? Or scroll saw people can get in on it? I was never clear on that part. I'll wait for the delay here. But and also I will mention Dave Portal. Dave Portal. It's like Steve Harneal. I keep calling them by the wrong names. Steve Nealon. David Jones from Portal Woodworks has a CNC router, laser, or 3D printer for Dave Gatton. So it is a CNC challenge of some sort or another, but not just woodworking CNC. You can cut it out with a laser. You can cut it out with a 3D printer, any type of CNC machine that works on, well, I guess wood or plastic. Christmas ornaments, Christmas projects, Christmas train like Peter Pasquale did one year. That was fantastic. That man's a genius. And David Jones from Portal Woodworks has the bandsaw box challenge coming up this month as well, December, and ends Christmas. Take one block of wood and use a bandsaw. Start with one block of wood. You could glue up a block together. It could be laminated, but it has to start off as one block. And go to Portal Woodworks for the relevant information on that challenge. Go visit Dave Gatton's YouTube site for the relevant information for his Christmas challenge. Just popped out. And let me see if I place a quick link before I leave for Dave's, and for if Steve is out there, he can give me a hand with portals. But let's see, Dave Gatton. And Dave's Christmas challenge. See if I can do that one specifically. Here it is. And here in the chat is the link to hang on a second. It's Black Friday. I gotta finish watching that. And there's a Dave's challenge, so you guys can pay attention to the rules there. And I highly encourage you all to make an ornament, make a beer holder like I did one year. Could hold a bunch of beers. Make a whatever you like. Whatever you like. It's have fun with it. Thank you all for, let me see if you touch the scroll saw. Just seeing if there are any minor questions at the end. Yeah, Etsy has a bunch of SVG DXFs. Yeah, be careful, because a lot of that's one thing I caution you about is Etsy and Fiverr and all these places. A lot of these places, what they do is all they do is take a clip art image, auto trace it, which you can do. They take a free clip art image, auto trace it, and they will create an SVG or a vector image out of it. Don't be fooled by those. You're gonna end up wasting your money and spending double the time fixing their images. Take a look real close at the images first, or go to whatever site you want, buy an image, and I know you don't want to base your whole opinion of a site on one image, but that's what I would do. I would go there, download an image, and see the quality that that person has put into the image, because in the end, if you're going to be spending $1 or $3, even $1 to download an image where you could press 2 buttons on Vectric to do, then well, that's your call. I like having the money in my pocket rather than throwing it away, but definitely take a look at that. Some of those images, though, on Etsy are really fantastic, and particularly the 3D images. Take a close look at 3D images, because eventually in some of the shows we'll be working with 3D images, but there's not much call for it. It takes an awful lot of time on the machine. It's great for a friend or everything, but it's not very productive. It's a beautiful thing to show off, but it produces very little money for the time involved on the machine. And if you're looking to make money, simple signs are what cuts it, or simple patterns. If you're looking to do something nice and original, then by all means, look at the 3D images, and we'll talk about that in the future, all the different qualities of 3D images, and because that's a long subject. You guys have a wonderful evening. Way past my time, so I am off. Have a great next week. There will be no show. I will be out in the country, so I will not have access to I'll have access to internet, but I won't have access to my computer or Vectric or the CNC, so we'll just take a break, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Y'all have a great Black Friday, Christmas season, and get out there and do some Christmas projects. Thank you for watching.